Okay, guys. So I'm gonna admit it. Kind of digging the new intro music here, at least for a little while. Makes me want to go. Honestly, God, it makes me want to go slam a couple shots of Jack and start a fight in a bar somewhere. I miss those days. Not as lean, not as mean. Still a Marine. Still have many, many joyous thoughts of breaking up a bar, don't get me wrong. But I'm past that. Today we're going to talk about, see, this is the cool thing about this. It just keeps playing, you know what I mean? It's like, it's great music. I'm just getting into this. I'm sorry, man. I keep listening to it. I don't want to talk. It brings back a lot of good memories, especially living in Cleveland. Gary Glitter recorded this years ago, but the song is still very popular in Cleveland. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We talked about the guns and all the pew-pews and guns. I said the word guns, so it's probably going to get me knocked off of YouTube. But it's kind of what we've done here is we've basically given you a car without teaching you about gas, where to put the gas or where to put the key. So let's talk a little bit more about ballistics. And no, it's not as sexy as talking about how to, attack or patrol or something like that. We're getting to all of that. You just got to be patient. But for now, we're going to talk about ballistics so you understand why the round works the way it does. And let's take it one step further. And I don't think I mentioned this. And my brother from another mother out there out west will tell you better than me. Going to try to get him on this weekend. Here's the deal. All right. If you're not reloading, and if you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to reload for long-range precision. That takes a special kind of person that can reload and shoot consistently with their own reloaded equipment. It takes really high-end equipment, and it takes skill. And it takes the precision of, God, there's a lot involved with completing a round, putting it on the shelf, and then making another round exactly the same. A few grains of powder can make the world of difference when it comes to a long-range shot. And we'll talk about that this weekend a little bit. But if you're shooting, like you're buying box ammo at the sporting goods store, and say you get some competition grade rounds and you're sighting in at 400 or 500 yards, and say it's a 223 round, 55 grain round, and you're sighting in at 500 yards. If you get another box of ammo, even if it's the same grain of a bullet, 55 grains, and it's a differently made ammo, like a different ammo company, I guarantee you, you're going to not get the same shot placement and a grouping with that second box of ammo as you will with the first, because there's so many things that come into play at that kind of range. You got wind, humidity actually comes into play. Everything comes into play. Anything you can think of, anything you can feel, most of the things you can't see, a bird flying too close to it, it doesn't matter. So first thing you got to do is you got to learn about the efficacy of the 223 and the 5.56 round. And I know that was a big word for some of you. Look it up. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over a little bit of that. And I need everyone to understand that going to a shorter barrel is not the end of the world. Going to a shorter barrel can mean effective confrontations, effective defense. Most of you, I know you don't want to hear it, but most of you aren't going to shoot more than 50 yards at the most in a conflict, in some kind of a conflict situation. The real truth of it, honestly, is most of the conflicts you're going to be involved in, if a conflict happens, you're going to be close enough to use a handgun without even sighting down the barrel. That's the law of averages. Now, if you're out in the mountains, out in the woods, that's different, but most of you are going to, if something goes down, most of you are probably going to be involved in more of a combat, like a close quarters combat situation. And at that point, a full-length barrel is a moot point. You won't even use it. It's going to be useless trying to maneuver and climb and get in the car and whatever you got to do. I know everyone has these, like I said, daydreams about shooting zombies coming over the hill from 500 yards away. Y'all got to get real. Y'all got to, this isn't a fantasy world. You don't live in a fantasy world. Get the video games out of your head. Get the movies out of your head. Real life sucks, and real life happens real fast, especially in a confrontation. You need to be practiced, and we're going to get back to what I was talking about, the efficacy of the 223 and the 5.56. However, you need to get really good at transitioning weapon systems. You need to drop that. You need to have a sling where you can just drop that rifle and it falls into place in front of you, smoothly transition into your sidearm and engage with your sidearm. Weight matters when you're moving through a situation like that. The kind of vest you're wearing, if you're wearing a plate carrier vest, every ounce matters. If you get knocked in the water, you're going to drown if you got steel. I'm just telling you right now, you're going to drown if you got steel plates. That's why I don't use steel plates. The main reason I wouldn't consider steel plates, and yes, that means I don't have the same protection from, 30-06 or 308 round. I get it. But I told you, I think the law of averages states if I'm wearing a vest, even with a trauma plate, I'm going to get shot in the head or the leg. So the vest isn't going to make a difference. But you need to understand that everything makes a difference. And if you're wearing all that shit and you practice shooting that 500-yard shot, and if you take it all off and shoot again, you're not going to be hitting the target at the same place. So short barrel doesn't come into play as much as some people think it does. But let's just move past that now. Let's get into a common sense guide for folks who actually shoot their rifles instead of arguing about them on the internet. The great barrel length panic. Here we go. There are a few things in the gun world that inspire more panic than cutting a few inches off an AR-15 barrel. Mention a 10.3-inch rifle around certain folks and they'll start acting like you just suggested defending your home with a sharpened carrot and harsh language. According to the internet legend, once a barrel drops below 16 inches, the mighty 5.56 immediately transforms into a high-speed spitball launcher. The bullet supposedly loses all effectiveness, all authority, and all possibility to be at all effective. Now, it is true that shorter barrels reduce velocity. Water is also wet. The sun is generally warm, and politicians occasionally tell stories. These are all facts we already knew. The question isn't whether velocity drops. The question is whether the drop actually matters enough to make the rifle ineffective. The answer is simple. No, it doesn't. You're not even close. Modern ammunition technology has advanced so much that many of the old arguments against shorter-barreled rifles belong in the same museum display as floppy disks and VHS tapes. Today's defensive 223 and 5.56 loads are specifically designed to perform at lower velocities, making short-barreled rifles exceptionally effective defensive tools. Despite what Uncle Earl's cousin Barbara read in a forum in 2007, we're good with 223 and 5.56. The velocity cult. If there's one thing gun people love more than buying guns, it's arguing about numbers. Velocity, energy, foot-pounds, muzzle blast, twist rates. The diameter of gas ports measured to 6 decimal places. Some people spend so much time studying charts you think they were trying to launch a satellite. Now, velocity does matter. Nobody's saying otherwise, but some people treat velocity like it's the only thing that matters. By that logic, we'd all carry lightning bolts instead of firearms. The original M193 military round depended on heavily on speed. Out of a 20-inch barrel, it screamed downrange is fast enough to fragment dramatically after impact. The military discovered that carrying a full-length rifle through buildings, vehicles, cramped spaces was about as convenient as carrying a canoe through a revolving door. Shorter rifles became popular. Velocity dropped, and suddenly people began predicting the death of the 5.56 every 6 months. Funny thing, though, the cartridge kept working. Modern bullet designers solved the problem with an innovative strategy called doing their jobs. Instead of relying entirely on speed, they designed bullets that expand, fragment, and create effective wounds even at lower velocities. Crazy concept, right? Modern bullets are smarter than internet experts. No shit. One of the biggest mistakes people make is comparing modern defensive ammunition to old military full metal jacket ammunition. That's like comparing a modern pickup truck to a mule and concluding neither has air conditioning. Military full metal jacket rounds were designed around military requirements. Defensive ammunition is designed around stopping threats. Those are two very different missions. Modern projectiles use all sorts of engineering wizardry. Polymer tips, open tip match designs, bonded jackets, solid copper construction, even controlled expansion cavities. So in plain English, the bullets are built to open up and do damage even when they're not moving at maximum speed. When a modern defensive bullet strikes tissue, hydraulic pressure forces the projectile to expand. The bullet mushrooms, petals peel back. The wound channel becomes substantially larger. Bad things happen very quickly to whatever was standing in front of the muzzle, exactly as intended. This means a short-barreled rifle firing quality ammunition can still produce devastating terminal performance at realistic defensive distances, which is generally good news if you're the homeowner, less good if you're the reason the homeowner grabbed the rifle. Why terminal ballistics matter more than internet opinions. Terminal ballistics sounds complicated. It's actually very simple. What happens after the bullet arrives? That's it. That's all it is. All muzzle velocity in the world doesn't matter if the projectile fails to create a meaningful tissue damage. Fortunately, modern .223 and .556 ammunition does exactly that. When a lightweight rifle bullet enters tissue, strange things begin to happen very quickly. The projectile destabilizes, it yaws, it tumbles, it expands. Sometimes it fragments. Basically, it stops behaving like a neat little bullet and starts behaving like a tiny physics experiment having a nervous breakdown. The resulting wound cavity is often significantly larger than the original diameter. This surprises people who think .223 bullets are too small to be effective. Apparently, they assume bullets politely poke holes and then excuse themselves. Reality is considerably less courteous. The magic of heavy bullets. Now let's talk about one of the greatest inventions in modern rifle ammunition, heavy bullets, specifically the 68 to 77 grain variants. Back in the day, many shooters worshipped the 55 grain full metal jacket, mostly because that's what everybody else was using. It became the pumpkin spice latte of rifle ammunition. Popular doesn't necessarily mean optimal. Heavy bullets offer several advantages. First, they retain momentum better. Secondly, they lose velocity much more slowly. Third, many specifically engineered to perform well at lower impact speeds. Think of it this way. A lightweight sports car is fast. A freight train isn't. Guess which one is harder to stop? Heavy bullets can carry authority. When fired from short barrel rifles, they maintain effectiveness much farther downrange than many traditional lightweight full metal jacket rounds. The 77 grain projectiles have become so successful that they're practically developing a cult following. Unlike most cults, this one actually has data. Powder is also important. A lot of folks focus entirely on bullets. Meanwhile, the powder sits quietly in the background doing all the work. Kind of like the guy who carries the heavy end of the couch. Traditional .556 ammunition was designed around longer barrels. When fired from short barrel, some powder may still be burning after the bullet exits. The result is a flash, a blast, and a lot of noise. A fireball bright enough to make nearby wildlife reconsider their life choices. Fortunately, ammunition manufacturers noticed. Specialized short barrel rifle loads now use powders designed to burn effectively inside shorter barrels. This accomplishes several things. You get more velocity, you get less flash, you get reduced blast, and better reliability, and fewer opportunities to accidentally signal low-flying aircraft with your muzzle flash. Come on, everybody wins. Oh, here's a good one. The great overpenetration myth. Few subjects generate more confusion than home defense and overpenetration. Every year, somebody confidently announces you should be using a handgun because rifle bullets go through everything. This statement sounds reasonable. Unfortunately, reality rarely consults popular opinion. Drywall is not armor. Drywall is essentially compressed chalk covered in paper and regret. Most projectiles pass through it with alarming enthusiasm. However, lightweight .223 and .556 projectiles often begin tumbling, fragmenting, and shedding energy rapidly after striking barriers. Handgun rounds frequently remain intact and continue plowing forward. The result is that many defensive rifle loads actually penetrate fewer interior walls than common handgun ammunition. This discovery has caused countless arguments on internet forums. Drywall remains unimpressed. Maneuverability matters. The defensive firearm that exists only on paper is worthless. The firearm you can actually use effectively is what matters. Try maneuvering a full-length 20-inch rifle through narrow hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll quickly discover that shorter barrels became popular and why they became popular. A short barrel rifle is easier to maneuver, easier to store, easier to bring on target, easier to retain if somebody attempts to grab the barrel, and most importantly, it's easier to handle under stress. Stress changes everything. Nobody performs like a competition shooter when they're startled at 3 a.m. Well, maybe somebody does, but they're probably lying. Recoil and follow-up shots. One reason that 223 and 5... No, wait a minute. Let's go back to somebody grabbing the barrel and the effectiveness. You know there's a tool automatically built into a 223 and a 5.56 if somebody grabs a barrel, how you get them to let go of the barrel. It's actually built into the weapon. A lot of people don't know this. It's called a trigger. And when somebody grabs your barrel, you shoot the trigger, you pull the trigger, especially if they're standing in front of it. If somebody's off to the side, like say they're standing off to the side and they grab the barrel, that's real easy. You just take a big side step until the barrel's pointing at them and they're holding the barrel, and you pull the trigger. If they push the barrel up and you can't, your barrel's above their head, grab the barrel with your other hand, fall to the ground, you and the barrel are going to come down, you pull the trigger, they let go of the barrel. I promise you they're going to let go of the barrel. So let's just get this thing, I'm very, I'm well equipped on close quarters combat, and one of the first lessons you learn, somebody's trying to grab your barrel, you need to clear that barrel with a bullet real quick. I mean, honestly, if you're going to give them your gun, you want to make sure the barrel's clear, right? Clear the barrel in their general direction so they know the barrel's clear, and I bet you they're going to change their mind about taking your gun. Okay, recoil and follow-up shots. One reason the 223 and 5.56 remain so popular is simple. They're easy to shoot well, recoil is mild, muzzle movement is manageable, follow-up shots are fast, accuracy is excellent. Compare that to some larger calibers. Some bigger rounds hit harder. They also kick harder. Physics remains stubbornly committed to fairness. For most shooters, the ability to place multiple accurate shots rapidly is far more important than chasing theoretical ballistic superiority. Misses have terrible performance. The conclusion. The internet was wrong once again. The belief that 223 and 5.56 become ineffective when fired from short-range barrels. The belief that 223 and 5.56 becomes ineffective when fired from short barrels comes from the time when ammunition technology was very different. Modern defensive loads have solved many of the problems that once concerned shooters. Today, expanding, bonded, and heavy for caliber projectiles perform exceptionally well at reduced velocities. Specialized powders maximize efficiency in short barrels. Terminal performance remains highly effective. Recoil remains low. Maneuverability remains excellent. Over-penetration risks are often lower than many handgun alternatives. In short, a modern short-barreled AR remains one of the finest defensive platforms available. Will a 10.3-inch rifle outperform a 20-inch rifle at 600 yards? Of course not. But if your home defense plan involves engaging hostile targets 6 football fields away, you may have larger problems in barrel length. For realistic defensive use, the 223 and 5.56 continue to perform admirably from short-barrel rifles. Despite years of predictions from internet experts who have successfully turned "I read a forum once" into a substitute for evidence. And that's probably the most impressive ballistic feat of all. So, none of this bullshit going forward about the short-barreled rifles. I don't want to hear it. What you're going to be using it for, honestly, it could be shorter than 10.3 inches if it had to be. You just need to learn to control it because it does jump a little bit harder. But y'all need to start using more common sense because these arguments about the longer barrels and the shorter barrels are just getting ridiculous again. And I've been asked so many questions, and I keep telling everybody the exact same thing. for what you're going to use it for, you don't need a 20-inch barrel. Like I just said, if you're going to be engaging if you're going to have to engage targets at 600 yards, let us say 6 football fields, you got a bigger problem on your hand than, barrel length. So there's no reason to be fussing around and insisting one is better than the other. If you're hunting, sniping varmints or something like that, 20-inch barrel is fantastic. But for home defense, there's absolutely no reason to say you need a 20-inch barrel. That's the end of this argument. This argument is dead in my eyes. So, as I said on the last podcast, something just doesn't feel right with this Iran agreement and what's going on with all the other countries and everything that's going down real fast. Everything's happening way too fast. I don't care who's in the White House. It's happening way too fast. I'm not saying, start boarding up the windows and anything yet. I'm just saying stay alert. All right, guys. I'm tired. Watch your 6 and peace out.